Chapter 2 The Secret Room. A shattering of glass woke Theo. He heard a rush of feet somewhere off in the mansion. He sat bolt upright in bed. Empire Hall was a smooth, well-regulated household. Here, surprises and unexpected noises in the night were not tolerated. Then came a sharp cry of pain from Mr. Nicely. Theo leapt out of bed. He could hear muffling arguing getting closer. "You fool, Brady! You've gone and killed him!" whispered an old man. "No, I ain't," snapped back a younger voice. "And there ain't no need to whisper either, for we. You know there's just the two blokes living here, and we saw the other one go out." A sudden rattling began at Theo's door. He stood frozen at the shadows. "Look in here," ordered the older voice. There was a splintering smash, and Theo's door flew open. In the half-light from the hallway, Theo could make out a skinny old man in a long raincoat, and a big, younger man in a leather jacket. Theo stared, transfixed. People! The old man, Foley, had a haggard face with a tuft of ginger beard. Brady, the younger, had a clean-shaven head and a squashed nose. "Blimey!" exclaimed Brady. "There's a kid in here!" Theo froze as the two men advanced on him. The old one was smiling. He had horrible grey teeth, not perfect ones like Dr. Saint and Mr. Nicely, and he had spots and pimples all over his face. Theo found them very interesting. "Oh, here's a bit of luck," said Foley. "Since he almost stiffed the butler, we need someone to show us round the house." "Oh, yeah," Brady said. "Someone to point us to the valuables." Foley waved a pistol at Theo. Is that for me?" asked Theo, wondering what the strange black metal object was. "It will be for you if you give us any lip," snapped Brady. Just in time, Theo remembered his guide to good manners. "I'm very sorry," he said quietly. "I don't believe we have been introduced." The two men stared at him as if he had said something strange. Theo quickly asked the question he had really wanted to ask. "Would you mind telling me what you're doing here?" The two men looked at each other. Brady suddenly raised a big ugly fist, covered in rings. Foley stopped him. "Leave this to me. He's obviously a weirdy," Foley said, making a screwing gesture with his finger at the side of his head. "That must be why they keep him locked up in this room. And that's why we didn't know he lived here, even though you've been casing the job for 2 weeks. Foley turned back to Theo. "Listen, kid," he said. "We're robbers. We've come to nick all the good stuff. So we need your help as tour guide." "Robbers," Theo nodded. "I know about you." He smiled, pleased with his worldly knowledge. "You're in one of my books of fairy tales, Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves." Theo looked around as if expecting another 38 men to appear. "Just show us where the loot is and we won't have to crack your skull like we did to the butler." "Oh, may I see?" asked Theo. The thought of Mr. Nicely with a cracked skull interested him strangely. "No, he's in the hallway. Tied up and gagged now, and we're calling the shots, not you, weirdy. Now show us round the house." Theo's face clouded over. "I'm sorry," he sighed, "but I'm not really allowed out of my room." Theo was shoved into the hallway, where he crashed into a grandfather clock and hurt his head. "Not a bit of old-fashioned persuasion will change your tune," Brady snarled. This physical pain after Theo's latest session in the mercy tube was making his head swim. He looked around the elegant oak-paneled hallway with wide eyes. He had hardly ever been in this part of the house before. A corridor led to several doorways at the end. What was down there? The kitchen? The garden? How he longed to see those places, but not with the robbers. Now he was scared. "Upstairs," hissed Foley, and they made Theo stumble ahead of them as they muddled the long staircase. Suddenly Theo felt terribly anxious. He had never been upstairs before, and they expected him to show them around. Then Theo realized something else. I'm not wearing my gloves!" he almost screamed. Theo stared at his bare hands, and for a moment they seemed to stand out with a strange clarity in the darkness. This fleeting impression soon vanished from his mind as the two men rounded on him. "Shut it!" growled Brady, bunching a fist under Theo's chin. "Listen, kid," Brady said. "We know you're crazy, but one word." "You don't understand," Theo said. "I have to wear my gloves, or—" Now Foley jabbed the gun into Theo's ribs. Enough, he ordered. Forget your rotten gloves. I know it's cold in this place, but one more squeak out of you, unless we tell you to speak, and you are dead. Theo fell silent. He knew what dead meant. Not long afterwards, Mr. Foley and Mr. Brady had cheered up. Theo had optimistically pointed them towards one of the rooms upstairs, and had turned out to have some valuable gadgets, computers, and cameras in it. From the looks of it, this was Dr. Saint's bedroom. But soon the intruders started complaining again. Now where's the real stuff? Foley muttered. This bloke Dr. Saint is the heads of all sorts of charities. Gentlemen like that are always loaded. Sticky fingers, you see. Show us more, ordered Brady, shoving Theo ahead of them down the landing. Theo threw out a hand to steady himself, and he touched the head of a little statue of a nymph, set into a recess in the wall. To Theo's surprise, the statuette's head sank downwards into his body, followed by a sudden click and a low grinding noise. A section of the wall slid back, revealing a concealed passage. All three stared in silence. Well done, breathed old Foley finally. That's more like it. A short, narrow passage led to a doorway, which was secured with a heavy lock and several bolts. There was a moment of professional reverence from the experienced butlers. "Oh, we've hit the jackpot, we have," said Foley. Theo watched, scared and fascinated, as the two crooks set to work with a combination of sly know-how and crude violence. Screws were eased out, locks oiled and hammered, and the bolts studied and shattered. The thick inner door creaked open, revealing a dark chamber beyond. Using a tiny torch, Foley located a light switch. They stepped into the room, and Theo gazed around him, astonished. The forbidden things! The room was littered with newspapers, magazines, photos, all the things that told you about the real world. Theo was not allowed to see such information. Dr. Saint had always told him that knowledge of real-life events, news, and history would only excite and confuse his mind. But Theo could not help looking. Yellowing old newspaper articles were pinned to boards on the wall. There were maps of London, snapshots of crumpled bodies, pictures of sinister figures with strange names. Theo peered at the dark illustrated image of a monstrous, misshapen man. "The Dodo," a caption read. "This can't be right. It's just a study or something," said Brady. Unnoticed, Theo was looking through a pile of pictorial newspapers. He looked at the dates. They were over 100 years old. There was so much to see, read, and drink in. "Crime ring broken by unknown crusader," one magazine read. Another headline proclaimed, "New hero of the night," but the picture with it had been removed. Foley was staring about him like a frightened rabbit. His teeth nibbled nervously on his lower lip. "Well, say something, you old fool," shouted Brady. Instead, Foley stepped towards a shadowy alcove at the far end of the room and switched on the lamp. They all stared. Theo's jaw dropped. A pale, long-haired man in a smart cape was peering out at them from a sepia photograph in a golden frame. The man had a haunted, tragic face. Yet there was something strong and resolute in its lines, too. The angular nose, tough chin, and those unfathomable eyes. Beneath the portrait was the legend, "The Candle Man." Theo stared. There was no mistake. For a moment time seemed to stand still. But there was no denying. His first startling impression had been correct. The man in the picture looked exactly like Theo. "Candle Man? Never heard of him," said Brady. "Have you?" Foley nodded. "We should get out of here," he whispered. "What?" "It's unlucky, you see." Foley was almost as white as a sheet. "Especially in our game," the old man said. "It goes a long way back. People hear about the Candleman, and not long after, they disappear." "Then why haven't I heard of him?" Brady asked. "It was all covered up. I into his secret. It was too horrible." The old man was distracted, fettering around nervously at the piles of paper. He looked at some random photos and blanched. "Oh, what a terrible way to go!" he gasped, putting the photos back face down. He switched off the alcove light and tried frantically to replace everything that had touched. "We've got to get out of here now," he urged. He was no longer the hardened housebreaker, but more like a terrified child. This is all way over our heads. We came to the wrong house tonight." The old man headed straight out of the room, and Brady followed. "This is crazy! Get a grip!" the younger man roared. But Foley was bounding up the stairs now with a speed hard to believe for his age. Brady was slower, dragging Theo by the arm. In the downstairs hallway, Foley turned to stare at Theo. "We are in dark waters," Theo said. "No one must know we've been here." "That means offing the boy," shouted Brady, pulling a heavy metal wrench out of his bag. "Oh, I don't like it," stammered Foley. "Kill the weirdy kid. That's too much bad luck. We'll have to take him with us." Suddenly, a police siren was heard in the gore outside, followed by a rending crash from a side door and the bark of a German Shepherd dog. "Police! We've got no choice now," Brady said, advancing on Theo. "We'll never get away dragging him along. He's there to stuck. Knows our faces." Brady swung the wrench back, ready to strike a fatal blow. "No!" cried Theo. He raised a feeble hand in self-defense, grabbing at his attacker's wrist. Then it happened. Brady's arm stopped in mid-swing, as if frozen. His body glowed with a soft green light. And then, before their eyes, he melted.